I first met her in the kind of place where people go to wait out their thoughts. A half-lit laundromat on Maple Street, the kind that hums like an old refrigerator. I'd gone late, trying to avoid the crowd. She was already there, folding what looked like hospital scrubs, her hair tied up, face tired in a way that didn't make her look weak. Just lived in. I knew her before that night, though. She was Ethan's older sister, Claire. He and I had been close in college until he moved away, got married, disappeared into family life. I hadn't seen her in years. She noticed me first. "You're Ethan's friend, right? The one with the old car." Her voice had that kind of warmth that slides under your guard before you notice. I nodded, smiling in a way that felt too self-conscious. "Still running somehow." She laughed softly, the sound bouncing between the dryers. "That makes two of us." We didn't talk much after that. Just sat through the cycles. My washer beeped, hers hummed. Every few minutes I'd glance over, pretending to check my phone, but really watching her fold each shirt with slow precision. I remember how she'd smooth her thumb across the fabric before stacking it. Small, unthinking movements that made me weirdly aware of my own hands. When she was leaving, she said, "Tell Ethan I said hi, if you ever talk to him." I nodded, though I hadn't spoken to him in months. Over the next few weeks, I started timing my laundry trips to hers. I didn't admit that to myself at first, I'd just end up there. Sometimes she'd bring a thermos of coffee and pour me some without asking. Sometimes she'd just nod from across the room and we'd spend an hour in silence. It wasn't romantic, not then. More like finding someone who kept the same kind of quiet you did. Once, she mentioned she worked night shifts at the hospital. "It's easier," she said. "Fewer people, fewer conversations." She smiled like she knew what I'd say before I could. "Yeah," I murmured. "I get that." She tilted her head, eyes soft. "I think you do." That night, she left behind a single sock, dark blue, folded wrong. I still have it. Don't know why. Maybe because it felt like the first thing she ever forgot in my presence. It was a week later when she called. I was half asleep, laptop open on my chest. A movie paused mid-sentence. The clock said 11:47. Her name flashed on my screen, Claire's Ethan's sister, a contact I'd saved years ago and never used. For a few seconds, I just stared at it. You don't get calls like that unless something's wrong, I thought. When I answered, her voice was softer than usual, like she'd been rehearsing what not to say. "Hey," she said. "Sorry it's late." "No, it's fine," I replied, sitting up. "Everything okay?" A pause. I could hear something in the background. Maybe rain, maybe a TV. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." Another pause, longer this time. Her breath caught slightly, a sound between hesitation and courage. Then she asked, quietly, "Do you ever miss someone you shouldn't?" The line went silent after that. I didn't answer, not because I didn't know, but because I did. I didn't sleep after that call. Her voice kept replaying, the pause, the softness, the way she didn't wait for my answer. It felt less like a question and more like a confession left hanging between us. 2 days later, I saw her again. Not at the laundromat this time, but at the corner cafe near the hospital. She was sitting by the window, her hair loose, staring into a cup she'd stopped drinking from. For a second, I almost walked past, but she saw me, and she smiled, that same polite, unassuming smile that could make guilt feel almost gentle. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked as I sat down. "Something like that," I said, trying to sound casual. We talked about small things. The weather turning colder, her long shifts, my half-finished thesis. But every few seconds, the silence stretched just enough to remind us what we weren't saying. When the waitress came, Claire asked for another cup, and poured it halfway into mine. "You never finish your own," she said, remembering. That detail shouldn't have meant much, but it did. It meant she'd noticed. At one point, she rubbed her hands together and said quietly, "When I was your age, I thought life would louder. You know, like more answers, less waiting around for something to make sense." I smiled faintly. "And now? Now I just fold laundry at midnight and talk too much to my brother's old friend." There it was, the line, the reminder. Ethan, her brother. My friend. The space between us felt smaller and heavier at once. I tried to change the subject. "He's still in Boston," she nodded. "We don't talk much. He thinks I worry too much about people who aren't him." She said it like a joke, but her eyes stayed on the table. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. I watched her fingers trace the rim of her cup, slow circles that matched the quiet thrum in my chest. I wanted to say something. Anything. That would make the air less fragile. Instead, I reached across the table and straightened the napkin she'd crumpled. A small useless gesture. But she looked up and met my eyes like I'd done something unreasonably kind. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For not asking what I meant the other night." Her voice trembled, just a little. "I figured if you wanted to tell me, you would," I said. She smiled, tired, maybe grateful. "You're a good listener, you know that." "I try," I murmured. We sat there for a while longer, letting the world outside move on without us. When she finally stood to leave, she touched my sleeve, light, brief, careful. But I felt it long after she was gone. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. We didn't plan to see each other again so soon. It just happened. The laundromat was empty that night. The hum of the dryers louder than usual. The flicker of the overhead light pulsing in a tired rhythm. I was loading my clothes when she walked in, hair damp from rain, holding a paper bag of groceries. "You again," she said, smiling, though her eyes looked wary. "Wes, I'm predictable." She set her bag down, pulled out a bundle of towels, and for a while, the only sound was fabric hitting metal. We didn't speak much, but that silence, it had changed. It wasn't polite anymore, it was charged. At one point she dropped a sock. I bent to pick it up at the same time she did, and our hands brushed. Nothing dramatic. Just skin meeting skin. But the small static spark between us was enough to make both of us freeze. She looked up first. "You should be out with people your own age." I laughed, softly. "I don't think they'd appreciate folding towels with me." Her smile faltered. "That's not what I meant." "I know." And we left it there. Half a sentence hanging like a held breath. A week later I stopped by the cafe again. She wasn't there. The barista who'd seen us together before said, "The nurse." She switched shifts. Night schedule now. I don't know why that stung. Maybe because I'd built my days around the possibility of running into her. That night I sent a text I never meant to send. "Hope your shift's going okay." It sat there unsent until I hit delete. But 10 minutes later my phone buzzed. "Claire, long night. Too much coffee. You still awake?" We talked for a while, nothing heavy. Just little things. Her favorite movie as background movies, my habit of overwatering plants. Between the lines, something pulsed. Something unspoken but real. At one point she typed, "You make it easy to talk, you know." Then forget I said that. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying too late. 2 nights later, she showed up outside my building. Said she was just passing by. Though she lived on the other side of town. We stood near the doorway, the smell of rain between us. She handed me a thermos. Coffee. From earlier. I took it, feeling the warmth through the metal. "You didn't have to." "I know." Her hand lingered a moment too long on mine. Enough to make my breath hitch. She looked up then, eyes flicking to my mouth before she caught herself. "I should go," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, though neither of us moved. It would have taken just one step. One. But the sound of a car door slamming down the street broke the spell. She turned, half smiling, like she was relieved and disappointed all at once. "Good night, Michael." And then she was gone. The air still smelled like her, rain, coffee, and something I wasn't supposed to want. It happened on a Sunday. The kind that feels too still, like the world's holding its breath. I'd run into her outside the small park near the hospital. She was sitting on a bench, shoes off, feet in the damp grass. Her scrubs looked wrinkled, her eyes tired, not just from work, but from something heavier. "Row shift?" I asked. She nodded. 2 births, 1 death. Always feels like life can't decide what tone to take. I sat beside her, keeping a small, deliberate space between us. The late afternoon sun came through the trees in fractured light, and for a moment we just watched it. Then she said quietly, "You stopped coming by the cafe. I figured you needed space." Her mouth curved, barely. "And what if I didn't?" That landed harder than it should have. My throat tightened. "Then I guess I misread things." "You didn't," she said too quickly. Then softer. "You just read what I didn't want to admit." We sat in the kind of silence that makes words feel too loud. Somewhere, a dog barked. A kid laughed. And I found myself staring at her hands. The way she kept folding and unfolding the napkin she'd been holding, edges worn thin. I shouldn't have called you that night, she said finally. It was selfish. You're Ethan's friend. I keep telling myself that matters. It doesn't have to, I murmured. But it does. She looked at me then, really looked. You're kind, Michael. That's dangerous. People like me, we take kindness like it's oxygen. And then we forget it belongs to someone else. I didn't know what to say. The truth was, she wasn't wrong. I started, but stopped. I don't think this is about kindness anymore. She turned away, blinking hard. Then what is it? I hesitated. The air between us felt electric, almost painful. Something I probably shouldn't want. For the first time, she didn't look away. You think I don't? Her voice cracked on the last word. I could have said her name. Could have closed that inch between us. Instead, I just watched her shoulders tense, as if bracing for something invisible. I keep telling myself this is harmless, she whispered. Talking, coffee, nothing more. But it's not harmless. Is it? Her hand brushed mine. Not by accident this time. Claire, I know, she said, almost smiling. You don't have to say it. The moment hung there, suspended, trembling. If one of us moved, it would all change, so I stayed still. She drew in a breath, slow and shaky. Do you ever wonder, she said, how far two people can go before they ruin something good? She didn't wait for my answer. And I didn't give one. The question lingered, fragile and dangerous, and somehow it felt like the closest we'd ever been. For 3 weeks I didn't see her. No texts, no late calls, no laundromat coincidences. At first, I told myself she was busy. Double shifts, hospital chaos, the usual. But there's a difference between someone being gone and someone staying gone. By the second week, I'd started stopping by the cafe again, the one near the corner window. Her chair, the one she always sat in, stayed empty. The waitress stopped asking if she'd join me. Eventually, I stopped sitting there altogether. I wanted to ask Ethan about her. But how do you bring that up? Hey, how's your sister? The one I might be quietly losing my mind over. So I didn't. It was a Thursday when I finally saw her again. Walking out of the grocery store, her hand on a little boy's shoulder. He was maybe 8. His hair the same dark shade as hers. He was laughing, something about the way he waved a carton of milk like a trophy. She looked different, softer somehow, and older, in a way I hadn't noticed before. When she saw me, she froze, just for a second. Then she smiled, polite and distant, the way people do when they've already decided to rewrite you as a memory. Michael, she said, her voice practiced. It's been a while. Yeah, I managed. I didn't know you had a son. Her eyes flicked to the boy, who was busy stacking apples in the wrong cart. Then never mentioned him, she said lightly. I shook my head. His name's Caleb. She looked at me then, something cautious behind the calm. Hay's not his father's problem anymore. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she was already steering the boy toward the parking lot. Before she left, she said, take care, okay? You look tired, that was it. 3 weeks of silence, and then take care. That night, I opened my phone. The last message between us was still there. Me too late. Her forget I said that. My thumb hovered over her name for a long time. I started typing. Stopped, started again. I saw you today. You looked happy. I miss you. Each one felt wrong. Too much, too little, too late. I deleted them all instead. I just stared at the blank screen. The way she'd stared at me in the parking lot. Like we'd both realized something we couldn't say out loud. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next day I went to the laundromat again. Same machines, same hum, same empty air. And for the first time, I folded everything carefully. The way she used to. Not because it mattered. But because she had once touched these same small, ordinary moments and made them mean something. It was raining again when she showed up. Not at the cafe, not the laundromat, at my door. I'd been half asleep. Same as the first time she called me. A full circle that didn't feel accidental. Her hair was damp, her jacket unzipped. One sleeve pulled awkwardly up as if she'd dressed in a hurry. I shouldn't be here, she said, breathless. I didn't argue. Just stepped aside. She stood in my kitchen while I made coffee, watching the rain slide down the window. Her hands were trembling, though she tried to hide it by tucking them into her sleeves. "Caleb's with my mom tonight," she said finally. I had space to think. "And that's dangerous." I handed her a mug. She didn't take it right away. "Claire," I said quietly. "You don't have to explain." She laughed, the smallest, strangest sound. "That's the problem, I do. Because you didn't do anything wrong, and somehow you still got tangled in my mess." I leaned against the counter, unsure what to do with my hands. "You're not a mess." She looked up, eyes tired but steady. "You don't know that. You just see the quiet parts." Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't look away. I liked them too much. For a long moment, the only sound was the coffee maker finishing its slow drip. I felt everything inside me wanting to move toward her. The kind of pull that doesn't ask permission. I kept thinking if I ignored it, it would go away, I said. But it didn't. She exhaled, soft, shaky. "What didn't?" "You." The word came out smaller than I meant it to. She closed her eyes, as if she needed a second to absorb it, or pretend she didn't hear it. Then she said, "You remind me of who I was before everything got heavy." "That's not fair," I said. "I know." We stood there, the hum of the fridge louder than anything else. Her hand brushed the counter near mine, deliberate, uncertain. "This isn't about wanting you," she said. "It's about what it would cost to." I swallowed. "And what if I said it's worth it?" She smiled, small and impossibly sad. "Then I'd have to stop you." The rain hit harder against the glass. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed. Neither of us moved. Finally she reached out, just enough to touch my wrist. Not a hold, not a pull, just contact. Her thumb moved once, slow. Then she whispered, "Okay." I didn't know if it meant goodbye or maybe, but it was real, simple, human. And that was enough. It's strange how life settles again. Not back to what it was, but into something you can live inside without flinching. Months passed. Seasons turned quiet. The laundromat changed owners, new paint, same hum. I still go sometimes, out of habit. I bring a thermos now, black coffee the way she used to pour it, half full so it doesn't spill. Claire doesn't work nights anymore. She took a day rotation, said she was tired of watching the sun rise from the wrong side of the window. Sometimes after her shift she'll find me at the park. Same bench, same uneven patch of grass. Caleb rides his bike in loops that never quite close, and she sits beside me, shoes off again. She's softer these days, not weaker, just less guarded. "I keep thinking about that question," she said once, watching her son glide past us. "The one I asked you that night." I smiled. "I remember. Do you ever miss someone you shouldn't?" She looked down at her hands, then at mine. "Turns out I wasn't supposed to miss you. I was supposed to keep you." I didn't answer. Just poured her some of the coffee. It had gone lukewarm, but she took it anyway. The air around us felt easy in a way it never used to. No tension, no holding back, just presence. We never made any announcements. There was no dramatic reunion, just small things. Her mug next to mine in the sink, my keys in the bowl by her door, her son's drawings pinned beside my notes. One night, while folding laundry together, still the same ritual, she said quietly, "Do you think people ever really start over?" I thought about it. No. I think they just learn to live with the middle part better. She smiled. Good answer. There was no need to say, "I love you." It was already there, in the rhythm of our days, in the quiet ways we filled each other's pauses. It's 8:47 a.m. now. A detail that would have meant nothing once. But that was when she called me that first night. The start of everything. She's sitting at the table, reading Caleb's homework, hair still damp from her morning shower. She looks up, catches me watching her, and shakes her head with that same small smile. The one that says, "I see you, stop overthinking." I pour her another cup of coffee. She takes it, our fingers brushing in that familiar, ordinary way. And it feels like everything we tried so hard to avoid. The quiet, the longing, the guilt. Finally came home and sat down with us, asking for nothing but to stay. I don't think love is a lightning strike. It's a light left on, steady, waiting, forgiving.